Feather the Redeemed versus Nicol Bolas the Ravager. Just played against this commander, and I'm not sure it's the same player. Yeah, I can't remember who it was, but we lost that game anyway. Let's see, we're not mana screwed here like we were in the last game, so I think I'm going to keep this one. A Battle Forge, and then we'll get down the Pearl Medallion next turn, and I think that's okay. Nicol Bolas the Ravager is a 4-mana Grixis 4/4 flyer. When it enters, each opponent discards a card, and then for 7 mana you can flip it into a Planeswalker with 4 abilities and 7 loyalty. Yeah, how about we go for the Pearl Medallion, and then we'll pass it back over. Feather the Redeemed is a 3/4 flyer for 3 mana in Boros. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets a creature you control, you get it back to your hand at the beginning of the next end step. And this thing gets charge counters on it, and then 1 and remove X counters from it. Adds any combination of black and or red. How about we get down a land and go for the Falwar Stone, which will tap for red. That ought to be useful to us. And then we'll get down the Swiftfoot Boots so that we can equip that to Feather next turn. And the Obelisk of Grixis comes down. That is a Grixis Mana Rock. We get into another land, so we can go for the Plateau with this. And then let's go red, white, and white. Get down the Feather. We need to hold up white so that we can go for Stand Firm. So I think we're better off going for Stand Firm right now, actually, so that we can get some extra damage on our opponent. That's +1/+1 and scry 2, and because it targets, we will get that back at the end of the turn. I think we want the Shelter as a little bit of protection. Yeah, and Shelter's only going to cost 1 as well, so that's 1 and then 3 with the Gutter Snipe. Yeah, I think we're okay to put the Mountain on the bottom, but we will put Shelter on top. And then Feather swinging in for 4 in the air. And in this deck we want to be rewarded for casting lots of instants and sorceries, hence the reason that Electrostatic Field and Gutter Snipe are in here. If we manage to get both of those out, then every instant and sorcery we cast will Lightning Bolt our opponent. And this looks like Nicol Bolas to me. Yep, so we'll just get rid of the Electrostatic Field. I'd rather have Gutter Snipe because it deals 2 damage. We'll go for the Gutter Snipe and then Stand Firm again. Actually, I think we'll go for Shelter because it's card draw. And it allows us to swing in with the Feather as well. We'll give protection from black so that we can swing straight past the Nicol Bolas. And if we get into the right spells, we can actually get some equipment going and then double strike and start to really threaten commander damage with this deck. So getting up to 7 in the early game is not as irrelevant as it might seem. And Eternal Skylord, when it enters, amass 2. Okay, so it looks like we're going for protection from blue then. Ah no, the zombie token is black, isn't it? Okay. Oh no, this thing doesn't have... It gives zombie tokens flying. Okay, so we can still do protection from black in order to get Feather through. And I imagine Nicol Bolas is coming in at us. They know we can have protection from black, so it makes sense for them to swing in here. And then before we pass the turn over, we're going to go for another card draw with Shelter. And that is 4 damage Gutter Snipe has dealt. And we draw into Open the Armory. And we get that card back at the end of our turn. Or at the end of our opponent's turn. And we're not getting into another land. I wish I hadn't scried away that mountain now. But Open the Armory is only going to cost 1. So let's go for that. And it's a white mana we need for Open the Armory. 6 points of damage from Gutter Snipe, if I'm remembering correctly. Now then, how about a Champion's Helm or a Darksteel Mutation would work, wouldn't it? Yeah, we'll go for Darksteel Mutation actually. I can't play and equip the Sword of Feast and Famine, which I would typically like to go for. So instead we'll just put a Darksteel mutation on our opponent's commander, and they won't be able to flip it with this. And then we can get down the Ruby Medallion. That will make red spells cost a generic less. And then we just swing in with Feather. They can chump with the zombie army token if they want to. I want to save the Shelter or the Long Road Home. They're deciding not to block there, so they're up to 10 commander damage. Okay, an Augur of Bolas coming down. And that is, look at the top 3 cards of your library. An instant or sorcery from among them goes into your hand, and the rest go on the bottom. They do have to reveal that. And they've got a Slave of Bolas, gain control of a target creature. Untap it, it gains haste, and then sack it at the end step. They can gain control of our Gutter Snipe, but that's a lot of mana to put into getting rid of a Gutter Snipe. And we can give that protection as well, so that's not actually all that terrifying for us. We'll go for Shelter because it is card draw. And how many is that? 8 damage from Gutter Snipe now. Let's give protection from black. The Slave of Bolas is black, so that will just fall off. And we finally get into another land, that's good. And if I'd planned that out better, we could have given protection from blue and chump blocked here, but not to worry, I've obviously got protection from black on the brain. Getting the Shelter back into hand, and then our opponent scoops. That's a shame, and the game has just quit out on me now, so I can't even remember how much life they were at, but I don't think they were out of the game just yet. Can't even draw the next card because I'm currently looking at the lobby. Yeah, an unsatisfying conclusion to that game, but obviously they didn't fancy their odds. I will probably use this as a bit of bonus content, and seeing as how I referenced it earlier, I'm going to edit in the game that we lost against Nicol Bolas. Apology for the spoilers ahead of time, but it is another unsatisfying game. So 2 unsatisfying games back to back equal a video, apparently. A second video for the day. I'm spitballing all this as I think about it. So yeah, I'm going to try and get an actual Feather recording now. And this one is your second video for the day. Hope you all enjoyed it somewhat. We got to see a little bit of the interactions that you want to go with Feather. I will see you all next time. Feather the Redeemed versus Nicol Bolas the Ravager. Now we have a couple of key cards in hand there, but we don't have any of our ramp or cheap cantrip spells. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to ditch that one. Okay, we've got some ramp, a couple of lands, a cantrip card. Yeah, I think we can get rid of the Boros Charm there. And we'll go in for the Mana Confluence first of all, and throw it back over to our opponent. I think the idea here is to go for Ruby Medallion, and then maybe Gutter Snipe first. Yeah, I think we want to try and get into our ramp first, and try and get into more lands as well, because this is quite a mana intensive deck, and Feather is just going to be a sitting duck if we get her out for 3 mana and then don't have anything to protect her with. Nicol Bolas the Ravager tends to be Grixis control, lots of removal and counter spells. A 4/4 flyer for 4 mana. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent discards a card, and for 7 mana you flip it over into Nicol Bolas the Arisen. Okay, Psychotic Fury is card draw at least. Let's go for the Stoneforge Mystic, and we'll grab ourselves a Skull Clamp because apparently we're going to need one. And we might need to use the Psychotic Fury to draw a card next turn. I'd really rather not do that. Maybe we go for Samut's Sprint and at least get a Scry going, because equipping the skull clamp isn't actually going to do anything. Okay, well there's a plains. So we'll definitely get into that. We'll draw the skull clamp. And we might as well hit our opponent for 3. Obviously we don't get the Samut's sprint back because feather isn't in play. Now, it's likely that our opponent is just holding up counter magic here. I think we'll just go for a gutter snipe. And with Ruby Medallion, the gutter snipe only costs 2 mana, so the skull clamp was able to be equipped to that as well. But we typically want to be operating a lot faster than this, and our opponent is drawing lots of cards, but they don't seem to be getting much going. This seems to be Nicol Bolas tribal. Okay, well, how about a Swiftfoot Boots? We'll put it out there, but I want to hold up the Swords to Plowshares just in case our opponent gets into red mana. So we'll just swing in with everything here. I can't see this game going too well for us. It's already going very poorly, I think. Okay, well there's red mana. And a reanimate onto Nicol Bolas, so I'm glad that I held up the Swords to Plowshares now. The question is, does our opponent pay for that next turn? I think they do. They have to put 3 mana into it every turn, but whenever it deals damage to us, we discard our hand. So do we wait for them to tap 3 sources of mana and then exile it? They could counter it in response, so I think we're better off just getting rid of it now. Gutter Snipe will deal 2 damage to our opponent. They are down to 16 life. Wow, we can't even cast Smothering Tithe, can we? I think we just have to go for our commander here. At least try and get something going. A Dragon Skull Summit comes down now, so our opponent has all the red sources that they need, I imagine. Yeah, and this just seems to be a Super Friends deck in Grixis, and I imagine that that is based solely around the fact that the new Nicol Bolas has all loyalty abilities of all Planeswalkers, so they're probably trying to go to Magical Christmas Land and get that sorted out. Still not drawing into anything, so how's about we try to put Hexproof on Feather and see if they have removal for it. Well, apparently not, so we'll go for the Psychotic Fury. That's going to be 2 extra damage, thanks to Gutter Snipe. But it looks like they are going for a counter there. Yep, they're going for Mana Drain onto the Psychotic Fury. So that doesn't resolve, and therefore Feather's ability becomes moot. Let's at least try and make a land drop, or do we want to? Yeah, we can either go after our opponent's face here, or we can go after that Duretti. They can sacrifice the construct to get rid of Gutter Snipe, and I think Gutter Snipe might actually be able to do some work for us. So in that case, I'm going to equip Feather with the Skull Clamp, just to get an extra point of power onto her. I would like to have expedited, but there was no guarantee that we would have gotten into a land there. And then we'll go in with these 2 at our opponent's face. And we got rid of 2 permanents our opponent controls there. If we can get in another decent swing, I think we've got them. But they do have an extra couple of mana from that Mana Drain to play with. Okay, that's a Bonfire of the Damned, and unfortunately I was F6, so I didn't get a chance to put Feather into the graveyard. I think I might have done. But we might be able to recast Feather, because it costs 1 less. Yes, we can, so we'll actually just go for that. I was going to Smothering Tithe, but I think I want to try and get a win off on our opponent as quickly as possible. Okay, Nicol Bolas comes down. We're just going to have to get rid of Smothering Tithe. I don't think we've been anywhere near quick enough to get that down, because our mana has been struggling somewhat this game. Now we can go for Expedite onto Feather to draw a card, and that will come back to us at the beginning of our end step. Okay, we get a City of Brass. That's a land for the turn. Now unfortunately we can't swing in, so I think it's just a case of getting down the Boros Signet. And we're starting to progress with land a little bit, but it might be too late. Grixis might struggle a little bit with gaining life. They don't tend to concentrate on gaining much life, so if we can last 6 turns, they might die to their own Phyrexian Arena. I'm going to put the... Actually, let's tap down the Boros Signet. We'll get 2 mana, we'll go for Swiftfoot Boots and the Skull Clamp. And then we'll be able to cast that instant on our opponent's turn as well. Now the question is, do they block here? Nicol Bolas would cost 6 for them to do that again. But if it flips over for 7, 2, 4, 6, 7 and 8, they can afford to do that. What they can't do is get rid of our Feather. They could reanimate a Flyer, maybe. Yeah, I think I'm just going to hold back here. And if they want to swing in at us, they can. This has been a terrible game for us. We've been mana screwed through most of the game. But I think we might be able to claw it back now if we're lucky. Nicol Bolas certainly has the card advantage up on us. Yeah, that's a shame to lose to Torment of Hailfire. Let's go for the Expedite onto Feather. Okay, somehow tap for black with that. Okay, there we go, we're down to 1 life. Our opponent can swing in here, but we will block with Feather. I think we have to send Feather to the graveyard. We can't tap either of these lands for mana now. Could have done with a Temur Battle Rage sooner than this. Now we just need to hope that we draw into a creature. We do not. So there is absolutely nothing we can do there. We'll just wasteland our opponent's Karoo land. And we'll have to pass like that. Okay, Jace Vryn's Prodigy comes down. I would like to expedite something, but I'm not too sure. I'd like to give that thing haste. And a Liliana Vest, they can tutor something to the top of their library with that. And that will most likely be a game ender, whatever it is that they go for. Well, we're probably going to lose next turn anyway, so let's give Jace haste and allow them to flip that over. Definitely good to clear that off the top. This is where, yeah, all our lands are coming too little too late now. Let's just get the Handwear battlements down. Give Jace double strike. And ping ourselves for 1. And there we are. A little bit too slow for us there. We mulliganed a hand, and I've said on a few games now that mulliganing a hand that actually has lands in it always feels bad because Magic Online tends to punish you for doing that. This is a prime example of it. This happens on quite a regular basis where you mulligan a hand that has a lot of lands in it. You keep a hand that has only 2 lands in it, and then you don't draw any more for the rest of the game. I think we got up to turn 10 there, and we only got into our, 4th or 5th land towards the end of the game there. So that's just not enough for us. We need much more mana than that, much sooner. But that's what happens sometimes, and we got to see a little bit of what Nicol Bolas can do. So hope you all enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.